tried not to be too obvious back there, but I think some of you might have seen me pointing at that house. I pointed at that house because that house has so much rust on its roof that every time I drive by it, I feel like I need a tetanus shot. Key West wasn't always named Key West. When the first Spanish explorers set foot on the island in 1513, they were astonished at the number of human bones that were laying everywhere. Historians have theorized that two indigenous until English-speaking, and they anglicized Cayo to the Key and Waiso to West. That's how we became known as Key West. He built his East Coast Railroad from St. Augustine to Miami, and in 1905, when he stated his intentions of bringing it to Key West, everybody thought he had lost his entire mind. They called this Flagler's folly, and nobody would admit it. But he didn't care. He had all the money he needed. He was John D. Rockefeller's business partner at Standard Oil, so he just pulled out $50 million of his own money to prove Mahogany did. January 22nd, 1912, he rolled into Key West in the first railroad car, along with President Taft. Taft came along to show the nation that it was safe to do so. Flagler also loved to build opulent resorts for his passengers, so his company built the Casa Marina to my right over here. It opened on New Year's Eve, 1920. Unfortunately, Mr. Flagler wasn't there to see it. He passed away in 1913. But in 1920, you could get a suite there with 3 meals a day for between $8 and $12, and people thought that was exorbitant. You can't even buy a bottle of water in that place for $12. Speaking of water, that body of water straight ahead, that's the Straits of Florida.
Pig's Beach.
It connects the Atlantic Ocean to the Gulf of Mexico, and you notice there's no waves.
So nice.
That's because 7 miles offshore, we have the 3rd largest barrier reef in the world. It prevents wave action. It also stops sand from traveling freely. Any sand that you see on any beach in Key West has been imported. We have no natural sand. One thing that reef did do for us by the 1860s, it made us the richest city per capita in the U.S. Most of that money came from wrecking. Usually 1 to 2 boats a week.
Next time we come, we're going to the beach.
Yes.
Would hit that reef out there, and a call would go out, wreck ashore, wreck ashore. All the able-bodied men would run to their boats and race out there. The first one to touch that reef, or excuse me, that wreck out there, became the wreck master, and he decided how it was to be salvaged. He also got the lion's share of the profits when that ship's cargo was auctioned off at the wreckers' court, usually held every Saturday morning at the wreckers. The customs house. This red brick building right here on my right, that's one of our 3 pre-Civil War forts. It's called West Martello. It was never finished. It got to the point where it was today that they said it was obsolete and walked away from it. Today's home to the Key West Garden Club. That raised area beyond those vehicles right there on the right, that's the African slave cemetery.
Wow.
In 1860, 3 Navy ships intercepted slave ships bound for Cuba. They had 1,400 souls on board, and they brought them to Key West. Those who wanted to return to Africa, we helped them get home. Those that wanted to stay, stayed. Many of their descendants are here today. But over 290 of them were so sick they didn't make it there in that mass grave back then. Over to my right over there, that's the Key West AIDS Memorial. it was dedicated in 1995. It was built exclusively from the charitable donations of the citizens of Key West, making it the only true municipal age memorial in the world. I told you we were going to talk about conch. And conch is a mollusk that comes in its shell. You take it out of the water, you knock a hole in the shell, you pull the animal out. The Bahamians taught us 16 different ways to prepare conch, like conch salad and conch fritters. If you were born in Key West, you are a saltwater conch. If you were born anywhere else, but you've lived here for at least 7 years, you are a freshwater conch. The boys' high school sports teams, they are the fighting conch. Cheerleaders are the conchettes. And even our sidewalks got into the act because they're made out of conch creek. In
These jokes are so corny.
1982, the federal government set up a roadblock 120 miles north of Key West. They stopped and searched every vehicle entering and leaving the Keys, searching for illegal contraband and illegal immigrants. Well, that stopped tourism in Key West. It took so long to get through that roadblock that people stopped coming. Our mayor at the time, Dennis Wardlow, he pleaded with the federal government to take down that roadblock. They said, because it was economically strangling us. They said no. So he and a bunch of his friends took matters into their own hands. They went up to a naval officer and said, hey, you're treating us like a foreign country, so we're going to be one. We're going to be the Conch Republic, and we secede from the United States. Furthermore, we declare war on you. At which point, they slapped that officer in the face with a stale loaf of Cuban bread. That was our weapon of choice. Before that conflict had escalated into war, the mayor immediately surrendered and applied for foreign aid to the tune of $1 billion in war reparations. Y'all might not believe this, but we didn't get anything. What we did get, some incredible publicity.
Where are you chasing the chickens?
All the major networks took up the story. The government was so embarrassed, they took down that roadblock. And our motto today is, we seceded where others failed. Right there on that third flagpole is our flag. I have to salute it because I am a commander in the Conch Republic Navy, which means that I can recognize a boat 2 out of 3 times. This is White Street. It separates Old Town on my left from New Town on my right.
So cute.
When I say Old Town, I mean the initial island of Key West. It was 1.5 miles wide by 2 miles long. It ended about right here, but I'll show you exactly where it is. But in the late 1930s, early 1940s, the government knew that war was coming. And they did such a massive military buildup here that we ran out of space. So the Navy started dredging. They dredged up what we call marl, M-A-R-L. They used it as fill, and they doubled the size of our island. Today it's 1.5 miles wide by 4 miles long. In 1941, the Navy built a freshwater pipeline down here from the mainland, and that's how we get our water today. Prior to that, we depended on rainwater and cisterns. When I go through this intersection, I'm going to point off to my right, and I want you to look at one set of flashing yellow traffic lights. That's where the island of Key West naturally ended. Everything to the right of that flashing yellow lights is man-made. These trees right there on the right are called kapok trees. Their claim to fame is that their seed pods were extremely buoyant. In fact, they were so buoyant that for many, many years, the Navy and the Coast Guard made their flotation devices out of them. They even called them K-pods. They stopped using them after a lot of years when they discovered that not only are they extremely buoyant, but they're also extremely flammable. Okay, we're looking for that one set of flashing yellow traffic lights right there. That is where the island of Key West naturally ended. Everything to the right of that is man-made. These first three houses on my left over here, they're called shotgun houses. The front door and the back door are perfectly aligned, with a hallway between them. You could actually shoot a shotgun in the front door and go out the back door and not hit anything. They were designed and built like that to get airflow through the house. There are 5 prevalent forms of architecture here on the island. We're going to discuss all 5 of them. The first one is the shotgun house. I want you to notice a couple of things about our houses. They're very close together and they all have 10 roofs.
10 rooms? Mm-hmm.
And they all have 10 roofs for 2 reasons. One, because they aided in the collection of rainwater. You would just put a gutter up there with a downspout, and every time it rained, it would refill your cistern. Secondly, in 1886, we had a horrific fire. It destroyed 70% of Old Town Key West. After the fire, they noticed that some of the houses with tin roofs on them were less severely damaged than the houses that had the wooden shingles. During the fire, they noted that the houses with wooden shingles, when their roof caught on fire, it would spit flaming embers on the house next door, set its roof on fire and burn it down too. So after the fire of 1886, it was mandatory to have a tin roof. Dead ahead is our cemetery. Wasn't always located here. They built it over here in 1847 after the hurricane of 1846 washed it away. If you are feeling any effects of altitude sickness, it's because you're at a whopping 18 feet above sea level. And we call this a hill, Solaris Hill. If you look to the back of the cemetery back there, you'll see the American flag. That is the Uss Maine Memorial. 27 men that were on the Uss Maine when it exploded in Havana Harbor were from Key West and they're in our cemetery. Notice that the bodies are above ground. And that's because we are on Cap Rock and you simply cannot dig into it. Anyone who's been in Key West for more than 20 minutes knows that we're a little quirky. And some of that quirkiness kind of worked its way into our cemetery. I'll tell you about a couple of the headstones that are in there. Betty Roberts, who was the island's hypochondriac, when she died, she put on her headstone, "I told you I was sick." And the wife of a philandering husband put on his headstone, "At least I know where he sleeps tonight." I'll show you a couple of examples of what we call gingerbread. These houses were built by highly skilled ship's carpenters, and they love to build gingerbread onto them. The first house on my left, look below the roof line, has arrowhead gingerbread. He's more than likely a blacksmith. Second house has gingerbread, more than likely a baker. Usually the gingerbread reflected the occupation of the owner.
You see it? No. It was on the trimming.
I told you at one time that we were the richest city per capita in the U.S. Well, that wasn't true during the Depression. During the Depression, we were one of the poorest. Our population dropped down to 10,000. 8,000 of them were on some type of assistance program. The city was so broke it couldn't pay its employees, so it returned its charter to the state. In 1934, the federal government sent a man down here by the name of Julius Stone to determine what to do with Key West. Stone said, "Wait, you have great weather year-round." Yes, we do. "You have beautiful waters around your island." Yes, we do. "You have a train system here to bring people down from the mainland." Yes, we do. "We're going to make you a tourist destination." So they started an island beautification program where they planted a bunch of trees. They built a couple of hotels, they built our aquarium, all in an effort to jumpstart tourism. And they set a date. They said, we're going to have a coming out party for Key West in 1935 in December, the likes of which never been seen. Mother Nature had something to say about that. On Labor Day 1934, she unleashed the worst hurricane to ever hit the Keys. It hit 80 miles north of us with winds in excess of 200 miles an hour. It killed over 600 people, wiped out 35 miles of Flagler's Railroad. We were isolated from the mainland. In 1938, the state said we're going to take those unused railroad trestles, build a road, and they did, and we were reconnected. The big white house to my left over here, I want you to look all the way up to the top of it, all the way up, 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 up. That's called a captain's walk up there. That house was owned by a very successful wrecker, Captain John Lowe. And he would sit up there and stand up there in that captain's walk for hours on end with his looking glass looking out over the waters of Key West to see if any ships had struck, they could go out there and salvage. I'm getting ready to turn on to Simonton Street, named for John Simonton. He was the first American owner of the island of Key West. He purchased the island from a Spanish naval officer who had been given the island by the Spanish crown for his service. His name was Juan Pablo Salas. Juan Pablo Salas and John Simonton got together in a bar in Havana in 1821, and John Simonton paid Juan Pablo Salas 2,000 pesos for the island of Key West. What Juan Pablo Salas did not tell John Simonton, and I think you'll agree with me it would have been very handy information to have at the time, was the fact that Salas had already sold it to 3 other people. So the courts got involved, and their decision was, we can't decide. So they kicked it up to Congress, and Congress awarded the island to John Simonton. He had more friends than Congress and the other guys, and he promised 30% of the island to the Navy. That's why we still have a very large naval presence. These trees that you see right here to the right of the train, those were part of that island beautification project. They're called West Indian Mahoganies, and they are not indigenous to Key West. Most all of the plants and trees that you see in Key West are imported. Our island was pretty barren to begin with. This blue building on the left over here with the blue doors on it, that was a car dealership. In 1928, Hemingway came there to pick up a car he ordered, but it wasn't there yet. So they put him up in the hotel next door, that tan building right there. That was called Casa Antigua. Hemingway ended up spending 7 weeks there waiting for his car. But while he was there, he put the finishing touches on his novel, A Farewell to Arms. This building to my right over here is a very unique building because of what it's made out of. It's made out of fossilized coral limestone. And if you stand close enough to it, you can actually see little fossilized marine creatures in there. It was quarried 80 miles up the road in Isla Marina. Today, it is protected. You can't quarry it anymore. You're not going to see any more buildings made out of fossilized coral limestone. This big red brick building on my right over here coming up, during the fire of 1886, that was a warehouse for William Curry and Sons. And inside that warehouse, they had over $100,000 worth of units, mostly tobacco. The building is made out of stone, brick, has a tin roof. It survived the fire, but it was the only tobacco warehouse to survive. The others were all wood, and they burned to the ground. That allowed William Curry to set his price that made him Florida's first millionaire. Today, that building is home to Mama Pilar's Lunch Distillery. They have free tours and tasting. This yellow building coming up on my right over here. And Coca-Cola built a bottling plant. Remember, I told you that we didn't have fresh water until 1941. So they made Coca-Cola out of rainwater. When it rained, they made Coca. When it didn't, they didn't. Bear in mind that Key West gets the least amount of rain of any city in Florida. We average 39 inches a year. And today that building is home to Key West first legal distillery. They do free tastings as well. My advice to you is to hit up both places for tasting. Go outside, change your shirt, and go back and do it again. We're coming up on our station stop. We're going to be here 10 minutes. Right now it's 2:03. At 2:11, I want to call you back, and at 2:13, we're going to continue our tour. When we leave here, we're going to have about 20 minutes of tour left. The restrooms are inside the building. Remember, you can